Hello and welcome to the Mastering the Hustle interview series. I'm your host, Joel Calkins, and today I'm here with Kevin Stubbs, who is the CEO of PubGenius. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to take a minute and just tell us a little bit more about who you are and your business?
Sure. So I started this business a few years ago, originally in ad tech, and my background has always been in development. So I started this with a few other people in Seattle, and my co-founders were coming from the ad tech publishing industry originally, and I didn't know anything about it, but it sounded like they had a good idea. They had some initial clients already, so we gave it a shot, and yeah, that was about 5 or 6 years ago now. And then after a few years of not having the great traction, we pivoted. So now we're doing some totally different stuff, but taking some things that we learned from the ad tech experience to try to differentiate a little bit. Um, so yeah, me as a developer, it's kind of always had this trajectory and then maybe kind of find some things to do along the way. But the core of what I'm doing is development and always trying to find like something to do that's along the path, if that makes sense, rather than trying to deviate. So kind of the more we pivoted, the more we leaned into the development strengths that we have.
Nice. That's great. So before that, you were working for a number of different companies before you took the leap into, starting up your own thing with PubGenius. So tell me a little bit about that decision. Why did you choose to go the entrepreneurship route, and what are some of the things you've learned?
Yeah, so I was growing up in the Seattle area. So when you're there, basically a Microsoft company town,
Hmm.
you run into a lot of people that are in Microsoft or people that are leaving Microsoft and starting their own thing. But um, I think that the experience of working at a large company does not translate well into entrepreneurship. And a lot of people that are, I think, career developers at one of these large companies are taking a lot of the money that they've earned and then try to create some new thing in the ecosystem locally. But it typically doesn't really work out. But it sort of sets me up for two things,
Hmm.
I guess, that came to mind. One is that I had a lot of exposure to Microsoft and corporate very early on. So I started working at Microsoft basically after school in high school on the Windows Embedded team on Windows Automotive. And then after high school, I didn't really do well at college
Hmm.
and and then went to work full time at Microsoft. So already by the time that I was full time for a few years at Microsoft, I was kind of ready to
Hmm.
do something different. And I had seen the model that kind of people people leading by example in the Seattle area of trying to do their own thing, but not really succeeding in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. So I guess that was inspiring in a way to do something different.
Yeah.
Just kind of really roundabout logic to decide that. But yeah, by the time I was 23 or 24, I was kind of tired of doing the same things in corporate, wanted to try something totally different. So um, one of the big reasons why we were in ad tech and pivoted away from it is because I just wanted to do something, like there wasn't a lot of thought that went into it,
Hmm.
which is a big reason why we ended up pivoting later on because
Sure.
it was a bad idea in the first place.
Hmm.
So don't do what I did, I guess is the moral of the story.
Sure.
Um,
Nice. So let's talk about that pivot a little bit. So you went in thinking, okay, we're going to be an ad tech company. There's an opportunity there in the market, and then learning as you went that maybe there's a need to pivot into something else. Uh, Tell me a little bit about that decision. Like, at what point did you decide, all right, this our initial hypothesis isn't playing out the way we'd hoped, and we need to make a change? When did that happen, and then how did you decide to pivot to what you're doing now?
well, after we were working on the idea for a little while, we realized that we were essentially just building a better mousetrap
Hmm.
as a product. So what we were doing was building a header wrapping or header bidding wrapper for the page. So header bidding is a lot of people that are just starting out will just throw Google AdSense onto their site,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of different ad exchanges out there. not just Google. So what you want to do to get more revenue is have the ad exchanges compete against each other
Mhm.
and then show the ad that will pay you the most. That's essentially header bidding. So what we realized is that we were not the first ones by a long shot to be doing this.
Mhm.
And in fact, our biggest competitor was Freestar, who was named the #1 fastest growing company in America, like 1 or 2 years after we started. So we saw that and we're like, this is probably not the best trajectory for us. And then since this was also my longest sort of stint in entrepreneurship, I got enough exposure to other companies. The way that we were working in this ad tech was we would find a website that has a lot of traffic, needs help monetizing it, and work with them to put our ads on this page and then pay them out. So by working with more and more of these clients over time, I got exposed to sort of different trajectories of success.
Mhm.
So when you don't have exposure to how other companies are working internally, you think that your experience is probably normal, especially that like in the Seattle area, a lot of people are trying new things, not really anything's happening. But then more and more often you start to notice what a successful company feels like.
Mhm.
Not unfortunately not firsthand, but from
Yeah,
their experience.
sure.
You'll talk to them and they'll be like, yeah, everything's going great. We're growing too fast, blah, blah, blah. And then kind of started learning that that's not really an exception in a way. Like you don't have to get super lucky to have this sort of high growth experience.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was sort of these different driving factors that made us think more and more about what else can we do with the resources that we have to find some sort of path of less resistance to becoming profitable, being able to scale with less issues, having less competition, stuff like that.
Yes. And so that's where you landed on um, building digital platforms, digital experiences for various companies. Is that right?
Yeah, so now we're doing like 95% of our work is full stack and
Mhm.
mobile app development. So
Mhm.
apps, products, occasionally marketing pages. We're also working with some large publishers that are making their money from affiliate to optimize their pages. So
Okay.
we're working with one client in particular. They're more than, I think, 15 or 20 years old,
Mhm.
and they are driving $1 million a month in revenue. So we are excellent at the development from the work that we've been doing,
Mhm.
but we're also uniquely positioned to help them figure out what development can we do to maximize their monetization.
Hmm.
So kind of finding a way to merge this new thing that we're doing with our old experience.
Yeah.
Um, so I forgot the original question. How did we pivot to this? I
Yeah.
guess
Like,
was
why did you choose to pivot to that? Like, what did you learn that made you
um,
think this is the way to go?
yeah. So we just started to. I had read some things in the past that some startups were their initial idea was not so great, and then they pivoted into becoming an agency. They made enough money to go back into becoming a product studio. So there was some initial inspiration from that.
Mhm.
I think that traditional advice is if you're going to do such a hard pivot, just shut down and start over with a new idea, a new team, whatever different situation you need. But I didn't want to let this one go
Yeah.
to sort of let down the initial investors, people that worked with us at the beginning and stuff like that. So we tried to keep pivoting into something that worked. And so we were sort of going towards this idea because we had developers on staff that were doing good work, but we didn't have a reliable sales process. So we were just looking for opportunities, different kinds of opportunities to use the resources that we already had. So
Mhm.
naturally, that was some development work. And then once we started to do development work as an agency, we kept sort of being open to different ways to pivot within that space.
Mhm.
So we started with Chrome extensions. They're just really small projects. You can find these projects pretty often. And when I was at Microsoft, I built Accessibility Insights. It's a Chrome extension to scan for accessibility issues on websites. So I use that as some starting place to find clients. And then we kind of just laddered ourselves up from there, from really small projects to now multi-year, multi-developer projects that we have. We're trying to find more and more of that. So it's always just initially when we started the company, we had a strong idea, and kind of no matter what, we were just doing this idea. And then over time, we became more and more obsessed with just finding the path of least resistance and finding also where we can find the highest trajectory for the least amount of effort.
Yeah. So a few things you said that stuck out to me, finding the path of least resistance, find the thing that has the highest trajectory. The other thing that you alluded to was, you started out small with the Chrome extension. So as you made the pivot, you didn't pivot into something grandiose. You made it into something small, which sounds like a really smart thing. So I just want to make sure to call that out, because I think people who are listening or watching this might want to take note of that. So once you've gotten to that place of we found our product market fit, we know what we can provide to the market that they'll pay us for, that we can grow upon. How did that change the way that you managed your team?
I'm not sure that it changed things so much. I think, yeah, our finding product market fit and being successful in this way did not change our management style. But because we were going through hard times to get to this place, we became very specific, opinionated about how we're doing interviews, what kind of personalities we're looking to add to the team, how we deal with issues, performance issues, or other kinds like delivery or communication. So when we started out, we were, I guess, a lot more naive and a lot more forgiving of different things. But then over time, we're like, okay, we've been doing this for a few years. We know that X works, Y doesn't work. The bad letters to use. A works, B doesn't work. So as soon as we start seeing some signs of B, we can just cut it off. We save our time, save some pain. And so this can apply to hires, but also to clients. So over time, we've become really good at hiring, but we've also become quite good at finding the right clients. And because we're always oversubscribed with work, we're able to walk away from clients that we have a feeling that aren't going to be good fit or whatever. And this helps overall the team's happiness and productivity. Less bad clients is better for them. And we're also able to kind of make more money. We're able to deliver better. We're more specific about projects that are only things that we're really good at, for example. And this is a more accelerated growth because now you're focused on just instead of trying to do everything at once, which is something that, with the Chrome extension, we were trying to do a lot of different things with the tech stack that we know. And then we also had people asking for things that are not within our core competency. So we're focused on JavaScript. So React Native, Node.js mostly. We do a little bit of Golang. But when we started out, we had people asking for, Java, C#, Python. We're like, you know what? We need this project. Let's do it. I've written Python before, and it doesn't really come out good. So we just decided to focus on only the things that we're really good at. We deliver really well, deliver fast, and then this client will be really happy. They want to come back for more work. They give more referrals. So the time that you put in becomes a lot more productive, I guess, in the long term. You can yield a lot more results from this, even though initially it feels kind of bad to be walking away from money, essentially. If you want to be working all the time and you don't have enough stuff to do, you can feel compelled to just take whatever project comes along. But yeah, so over time, how our management changed is more like this, like becoming more filtered. Don't know what the right word for that is, but we have a very clear idea of what we like, what we don't like, what works, what doesn't work, stuff like this. And so we're just much more sure of the right model now. And it took a long time for us to get here. I think some people that they were just gifted with sort of the right weights, like the right weightings of their personality to already have these kind of opinions,
Yeah.
they'll do really well. But otherwise, if you give it enough time, you'll also become focused on the right things that will make you successful.
Yeah. No, that's really great. It's interesting because I was talking to a client just yesterday about not trying to bring in more customers, but trying to actually fire a certain segment of their customers so they can bring in more of the right kind. And it sounds like what you guys found along the way too is let's figure out the right
Yeah.
people to work with, and that actually improves the morale of the team because they're getting better work. It's more satisfying. So that's really important. So as you think about your business life cycle where you've been, I think it's really great that you while it was hard to probably learn some lessons at the beginning and pivot, you found your way through it. And that's really important. I think for any business leader, business owner, as they're walking through their business and they're going to learn some things along the way, especially early on that may not necessarily work out the way they thought. And having the tenacity to keep going and to learn from those is really important. So yeah, congrats to you on that. As you think about where you're going to be headed next, can you share with me just your view of what the next few years might look like for PubGenius?
Yeah, so we have a few different ideas, I guess. One is to continue to scale up what we're doing already as an agency. So adding more developers, adding more project managers, finding more sources for projects. So we have been getting all of our projects from basically Upwork and referrals. We've been struggling. We don't spend any money on marketing and sales, which I don't recommend, but it's worked for us. But yeah, don't do that. And we want to start to do that to bring in more clients. And we also want to start looking for bigger projects. So projects from government entities, universities, stuff like that. So just thinking about the ladder from starting really small to becoming bigger. We're looking for the next kind of stage of projects. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we've been operating as a venture studio. So most of the time we do projects for just cash, but sometimes we do for cash and equity. And so we've seen some of these projects, some of them just totally blow up, but some of them are getting some decent traction, at least with their fundraising, if nothing else. And so I think that doing a little bit more in this area would be nice for us long term, but we're not focused on it. And the ones that blew up, they were, I think, partially a result of us relying too much on the other party rather than taking control of some things ourselves. So I think it's not going to be successful without paying a lot of attention to it. And then the third thing that we're interested in is building out our own products. Kind of comes back to the product studio idea. But I'm not totally sure about that. I think some products for things that we've needed to start building internally would be great, like products that we use or something that we've developed for ourselves as an agency that could help other agencies. I think something like this where we have to dog food it ourselves and something that we can kind of show evidence that it's been helped us become more successful could be good on the market. Otherwise, something with AI, some sort of, I don't know, anything. It could be a template for other developers, or maybe something for businesses that want to integrate with AI. We haven't done anything with that, but I think that so as an agency, you don't really want to have 100% of your people working, right? You want some room on the bench. If you have 100% utilized, it means you probably should be hiring more people. You can't really find that correct equilibrium, and you also can't fire people as soon as you don't have enough projects. So you need to have enough that there's maybe 5 to 10% of the team is not doing anything at any time, at any given time. So we have to find some outlet for this otherwise idle resources. So that's why I'm building up our own products or helping with another company for equity kind of makes a lot of sense. Like it's just naturally going to be things that every agency is going to do because of these conditions, right? Idle resources that need to be used. So yeah, I think these three things probably the venture studio one will not really think about, but
Yeah.
definitely scaling up and to start to build out our own products.
Yeah. It sounds like you guys are starting to take on the like next layer of growth. And I'm interested in what you said about, taking some of your resourcing and applying them to think about what's next. So I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they get so subscribed. They have just enough people to do the work in front of them, but they want to grow, but they have no space or capacity to begin to think about what that might look like, much less put any resources behind it. So I think it's really smart for you guys to be strategic in how you apply your team towards that goal. So yeah, this is something to note for sure, as people listening to this, that don't max out your team on just the work you have. You want to keep yourself and others in a position where they can help drive wherever you're trying to go in the future. Well, Kevin, this has been a really good conversation. I really appreciate you being willing to come on and share your particular journey. I think a lot of people can relate to, stepping into something, realizing they need to make a change, and you've effectively done that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So anyway, I wish you and PubGenius the best. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.